Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. Today, we're sitting down with Lee Crowson, veteran advocate, who continues to find ways to help our community. This is going to be a great conversation because this is one person who generally really cares about, our community and the things that we need to help our community. So fresh off winning the tag team championship belts, how are you recovering today, Keith?
I'm sore, but I tell you what scares me more is we break up and then I have to face you one-on-one because that's usually how those storylines go. And I don't know if I'll win that fight. It'll be like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, facing off in the ring, man. See if I can get a body slam in on you.
These days, there always seems to be a chair involved.
Yeah. It makes it easier. I would probably have to put you through a table or something. I don't know. I haven't watched wrestling in years. Do they still do that stuff?
Oh yeah. It's gotten more and more popular as far as that's concerned. Yeah.
Nice.
So, all right. So we're sitting down with Lee Crowson. He's a Navy veteran, founder of the IO Psychology pop-up community, an adjunct psychology professor, and a team lead for a technology firm supporting the Department of Defense. After supporting more than 22 years in the U.S. Navy, after serving more than 22 years in the U.S.
He
Navy.
supported too.
Yeah, he probably did support a little bit. And retiring as a chief petty officer, Lee transitioned into the private sector where he combines his expertise in leadership, technology, and human behavior to help organizations and people thrive. Passionate about service beyond the uniform, he mentors transitioning service members and volunteers within the veteran community. How you doing today, Lee?
Oh man, for Saturday morning, I'm doing pretty good.
Saturday morning, it's Tuesday night. What are you talking about?
I knew something was off. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, your days are way off.
Well, I said
I drink my coffee at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
Well, veterans, we do that.
True. Thanks.
There's a rumor that if you prick me, I bleed coffee. So just say
Yeah. Coffee, nicotine, and aspirin.
And anger.
And anger, yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was a point. I don't know that it holds true anymore, but I'm pretty sure I've peed bourbon. So it's
maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got an off the air story for that, something similar to that, but that it can't be told here.
Yeah, I actually had one of your favorite brands last night, Sean. I'm just saying.
Well, what's that?
Little Woodford Reserve. But I had the single malt. Excellent choice if you haven't tried it.
Scary enough, I'm 5 weeks sober at this point, so I have not tried it, and I don't know that I will be, unfortunately.
No, whatever it takes.
Fortunately / unfortunately, because I do love the taste of it, but trying to do what's right for me and then the body, and to be around for a little while. So we'll take this day by day on this journey. So, but let's talk about Lee.
Oh, geez.
Lee is fascinating. So let's start with your transition story, brother. Tell us how your transition out of the Navy went.
Well, I actually have a two-part transition. The first being much more difficult than the second, because the first, I was an active duty reservist. So being an active duty reservist is kind of like being a contract employee. You get blocks of orders, and you get paid when you get them. Well, the Navy goofed something up, and all of a sudden, I didn't have them. And so when I was expecting to continue to put on the uniform every day, all of a sudden I was unemployed, essentially. And it was a little bit of shock.
You got fired on your day off?
Thrown into the job. And job hunting was quite different. That many years after the last time I had looked for a job. And so trying to do that, and I made the classic mistake of trying to do it on my own. And it's soul crushing, man. It took months, and ironically, when I got a job finally, right about that time, the Navy went, we kind of messed up. Here's your orders, and they pulled me back. And I had gotten a job for a company in the defense industry, and they were like, we'll see when you get back. So, it's one of the good things about being, in that industry is that, they're pretty friendly to that sort of thing. So, when I looped back around and I retired, it was a little bit easier on me because the company I had previously been employed by said, sure, we got a spot, come on back. So, unlike many vets, I got to walk right into a job. Um, was it the one I wanted? No, but it kept the lights on, kept the kids fed. Um, but it also freed me up to do a lot of the other things. Um, I went through some workshops, I got involved in some veterans groups, did some virtual networking, um, tried to expand um my network because, dirty little secret about the little bitty base I retired off outside of Memphis is that it's one of those where people retire and then they go poof and they're all gone. So most of the people I served with are not here. And
Mm.
so it's like, standing in an empty room going, hello. So, I had to find my people, out here in cyberspace, and that's, it's great. After a while, I ended up going to, like Military Influencer Conference and some other things, and I got to meet you two guys. Um, and for those out in the world, Sean's really shorter in person than you think he is. I just, um, but Key Spirit is
Why do
every
we call
bit
him Tiny?
So that's really so I realized that mine was easier than many go through. Did I have struggles? Yes. Did I have the mental health challenges? Yes. Did I have the doubt and all those things you go through? Absolutely. Um, and it took some time building that network to really kind of get through some of that, but I didn't have the financial stress at the same time. Well, I mean, I kind of did because my initial foray in the civilian world was a considerably smaller paycheck uh, than I'd made it, as an E7. Um, but all in all, the big thing, what do you do when you transition? Well, I mean, you talk to people because, like Alfredo loves to say, I've been retired for a couple of years now. The Navy hadn't called once to check on me. You know, once you once you cross the quarterdeck, I mean, they're like, leave who? And so one of the big things is taking transition advice from someone who's still wearing the uniform, not necessarily your best bet. You need to talk to the guys out there with the beards and stuff, and I'm not talking spec war guys. That's a whole other thing. But the the guys who have made it out and they're living the life that you are, whether you know it or not, aspiring to live. So, uh, so here we are.
That's yeah. I've been waiting by the phone. The Army hasn't called me, so
Dang it.
they must have lost my number.
So,
Yeah.
strangest thing, my son just got out of the Army, literally 2 months ago now. The Army called him like
Did
2 weeks ago. They were like, "Hey, just want to make sure you're doing okay." Like literally, like it was
What?
like a transition counselor called him out of the blue. I don't know if it's a new thing the Army is doing, like to just check in on service members, but he just got a call. He's like, I don't even know who this lady was. She just called me and was like, "Hey, we just want to make sure you're doing okay." Like
Wow.
maybe I wonder they might actually be calling to check up on us. Well, not us. We're too far removed, but yeah. Anyway, that
Well,
blew my mind. I was like, "What in the
that
world?"
is kind of amazing. The only call I got was them telling me he was trying to renew my security clearance, and I was like, guys, I retired. They're like, oh, I'll update your record.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it could be a couple of things, right? It could be that specific transition office decided they were going to start doing that, or maybe
Yeah.
it is a new policy. Either way, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I
I
was
mean,
shocked.
even just that one phone call could change somebody's dynamic. Maybe they're really struggling with that loss of identity, the loss of their tribe, and that one phone call says, "Hey, we want to make sure you're doing all right." Not that they're going to do a whole lot for you, but that phone call though could be that springboard.
Yeah.
That could help. So I love it.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love it.
I was blown away by it.
So Lee, what made you want to help the veteran space though? I mean, other than being a veteran, I like when I retired, I figured I was walking away from the military altogether and you'd see me at the commissary or the PX from time to time. And that was going to be about the extent of it. Um, and God had other plans apparently. I've learned not to make my own. I'll just let him do it.
Well, that's an important, lesson in marriage too, right? Don't really make plans. Now,
And of note, when I asked Lee to be on the show, his very first statement was, "Well, let me check with the wife and see what our plans are Saturday."
I did indeed. I made plans one time, and it was 26 years ago, I think. I made plans one time without telling her in advance. I think there's still scars, but
There's definitely
yeah.
PTSD apparently.
Right?
I don't know what
Trigger
you're
there.
talking about. But, yeah, so during my time, well, some before the Navy and then definitely during the Navy, I had what I'd say as I had great examples of leaders and I had great examples of bad examples. And so between the two, I went, yes, no, yes, hell no, yes, yes. And I picked out of that the leader that I wanted to be. And that leader was the person who put, my sailors first. I mean, you do the mission because the mission is there and it's got to be done, but the people are the ones who do the mission. And so if I take care of them, they take care of the mission. That's just kind of the way I look at it. And so I spent, I was a chief for 14 years or something like that. So I spent a lot of time, especially after that, as a team leader. And, I made it a point to, get to know them, to know what they're doing, what they want, what their families are, and, which we do more in the military anyway. But, I did what I found out later, the civilian world calls coaching. I was like, oh, who knew? And so I would sit down with them and go, okay, what is it that you want to do? And I'm not necessarily talking about in the Navy. What do you want to do? What is the steps down the road for you? Even if it's post-uniform, what is it? Because they'd come in and they're like, well, I'd kind of like to get this degree, but it doesn't have anything to do with my rate. I'm like, well, let's put your rate aside for a second. What do you want to do? And I assisted sailors to get degrees and things that had nothing to do with their military specialty. And, or get into trainings or, encourage them to take that step to take care of themselves and their families. And so many of them were just like, I've never had anybody do this before. And I'm like, well, then they're wrong. And so when I transition, I mean, yes, I do a lot of that for my civilian employees, but I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a habit, that there are service members out there, and it doesn't matter if senior, junior, whatever. None of that matters on this side. There are people coming into the civilian world who need help. They don't know where to go. They're wandering around, bumping into the furniture, and so somebody has to turn the light on and go, doors over there. And am I the top voice? Absolutely not. Am I the number one veteran transition? Oh, of course not.
I think you're number two right now.
Oh, no, maybe. But but I can take someone and say, have you watched the VET S.O.S podcast? I can take someone and say, have you ever have you gone to the MIC? Have you heard of Boots to Books? Or Mill Mentor, love that. I'm a mentor on there. Have you pick someone who has something interesting you want to know more about? Because here's a dirty secret about, everybody says, oh, you should network, you should do this informational interviews and all that kind of stuff, which is fantastic. But for people who don't just go, Sean, I don't know, I don't know you, but I think you're kind of interesting and I'd like to have a conversation. And I'm trying to do this in a totally non-creepy way. Well, I mean, usually there's one of two things. You're either going to ignore them or you're going to say yes. But that still requires that first piece of going, hey, you don't know me, but I'd like to ask something of you. But you go to something like Mill Mentor or Post Federati or some of the other things on there and you go, Keith, this guy's got stuff I want to talk about. And then he's already said yes because he signed up. And so just directing people to, things like that, and I could throw plugs to a whole bunch of different veteran organizations that I'm sure we've all got some connection to, that do workshops and job fairs, and just they post incredible resources on, on social media and whatnot. But if you don't know where to look,
Mhm.
it's like going to Google and typing in stuff. You're going to get a list. May not be very helpful, and so part of my, I guess my continuing mission is someone says, I'm leaving the military and I don't know where I'm going. Well, let's at least find you a starting point. Have you done your VA claim? Well, let's get you to somebody who can talk about that. It's not me, but I know someone. And, and part of the reason that I know someone is somebody else went, have you talked to Sean? He might be able to help you with that. And we have this incredible network that it's like practically pre-made, that we take care of each other. It's what we do. And I may not have the answers. One thing we learned in the Chief's mess, they always say, ask the chief. The chief knows everything. Well, dirty secret is the chief's mess has all the answers. Me, I don't have it, but I can, hey, Keith. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Okay. Now the answer is, and we still have that on the other side. It's just, it's almost like the E4 mafia, it exists, but, it's not really open. So.
Yeah. And you said something I latched on to earlier, when they're getting out, like you need to talk to people. I think you said whether you know it or not. Yeah, the kind of thing. And you bring up two extremely valid important points. One, mentorship, right? And there's so many platforms out there to find people that are willing to mentor, and you absolutely need to leverage them. But, sometimes it's hard to find people in the industries you're looking to go into that are on those platforms, and so it just made me think of the one piece of success that I found extremely effective because you mentioned like these cold calls, right? Like, hey, you don't know me from Adam and I want to steal 20, 30, 45, 60 minutes of your time. Just, for anybody out there listening, people I've told over the years, make it all about them, right?
Yeah.
Because you're still going to get all the information you need, but the second you make it about you, they feel like you're taking their time. But if you just say, hey, I want to ask you about what you do, where you're at, how you got there, all you, people love talking about themselves, right? And they're going to be much more apt to be willing to spend 30 minutes. And really, the conversation is no different than if you reached out and said, hey, I'd like to ask you, can you help me, right? The questions are the same, but just that the framework and the mental aspect of it oh, this guy wants to learn about me. He wants to know what I did, he wants to be where I'm at, all those kinds of things. It's usually, not always, but it usually tends to go a lot better. So I'm really curious, so what is this IO psychology thing? Like tell us about that.
Well, interesting thing about IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology, is it actually came out of the War Department during World War One. So we from the beginning, we have a connection to it. And the simplest way to describe it is it's the study of human behavior in the workplace. And it covers all the things. I mean, like I told people, it's a Swiss Army knife of psychology. The clinical and those guys, they've got to lay on the couch and tell me about your mother stuff. We have everything else: coaching, team building, organizational change, training development. We can do all those things. It's kind of like, and a lot of people like to equate it with human resources, but it's not. It's like human resources builds a house. IO can make it a home. And so when they work together, you have the whole compliance and all that kind of stuff on the one side, and then we work with the people themselves. So, we work with the employees, how to make it a better place, how to give them psychological safety, how to make them more efficient, how to give proper feedback, how to improve performance. But it comes from the people side of that because, yes, the organization is important. We want to make a profit. We want to keep the lights on. We want to do all those things. But it's who builds that? Well, an organization is just a group of people. And so you have to deal with the people themselves and you have to do it with the right lens. I mean, yes, can you motivate people? I mean, they used to motivate people with, like legit, actual whips. Well, we don't need to do that. There are ways to get people to do it because they want to. And you can do things like, I mean, obviously pay and whatever else, but I mean, think about wearing a uniform. How do you motivate, a junior to do something? Well, I mean, maybe you give them a little bit of liberty. Maybe you call them out in quarters. Maybe you put their name in the base newsletter. There are motivations to a particular person that that they will go to greater lengths to achieve. And it's not manipulation. It's literally, what do you need? Let me help that happen. And then you're doing what I need you to do as a member of this organization. And it actually is a great draw. We have a lot of veterans who end up in the field. And a lot of times you ask them, well, how did you end up here? And they're like, well, I had this experience. We've all got those stories. And they're like, I wanted to learn how to not have this happen again. I wanted to learn how to make sure other people don't go through the BS I went through. Well, how do I do that? Well, somebody told me about this thing and I got in it. It was like, oh, this was what I needed. My story's a little bit different. I actually was pre-Navy. I actually was in psychology, figured out counseling was not where I needed to go. And yeah, that's a whole other story there. But so it's like, okay, what do you do with psychology? What do you do with psychology? And we had another program at my school. It was IO psychology. And I'm in the program. I'm like, I don't know what that is. It's like the greatest secret ever. And I talked to one of the other grad assistants. He was like, it's the human side of HR, which is kind of what it was, in those days. And I'm like, great, sign me up. And I got into it. It was fascinating. Why do people do what they do? Why do people not do what they don't want to do? And all these things. And so when I got the opportunity to teach, I teach a class called managerial psychology. And we talk about how to be a better leader, how to communicate, how to encourage your employees, how to get them, how to work with them on their goals, and well, how is that different than your goals? And because so many, we have a bad tendency to promote somebody because they're good at a thing, but not train them to lead people who are good at a thing. And we need to do better. And so we're getting out there and getting more people in the field and getting more visibility because hiring is broken. There's issues in organizations. The military. I used it for 22 years in the Navy. Didn't even actually realize what I was doing until somebody pointed out, dude, you did this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't waste my money, and so, being able to take, students and early career people, especially those who are veterans or still serving even, and say, what can we do with this? How do I take this and make something with it? And, we tell the dirty little secret is there are no real IO jobs outside of the government or academia, but then again, they're all IO jobs because any job that you do involves people. How do you communicate with them better? How do you motivate them better? How do you do, how do you do your own job better? So it could be a pretty powerful tool with the right, with the right mentoring and get on the right path. And so that's been
Yeah.
pretty rewarding too. And I've got quite a few vets in my community that
Yeah.
we're going to see some great things, I think.
What week in this class do you cover the knife hand?
That's towards the end. You got to be able to do it responsibly. So
Advanced techniques.
advanced techniques. Yeah, you got to just right angle. So we have to, we got to cover that too.
So, and basically what I'm hearing is every good E6 through E8 is an IO psychologist, essentially.
Working similar, yeah.
Like it's like we should all retire. If you retire from E6 to E8, you should retire with an IO psychology degree.
it would not be a bad thing. I mean, and the funny thing is, one of our friends, Sean, Matthew, Marine Corps retiree, never had a single IO class. He started coming to our IO community meetings because he's like, wait a minute. He heard more about it and goes, I've done that. And so you don't have to have a degree in it to be involved in learning more about it. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. And, and at least the people that I hang around are pretty accepting. You don't have a degree in it. Okay. So what? You want to learn more. You want to be better. You want to do better, for you and your people. Come on in. Doors open.
Well, I think that's the key sign of a good leader, though, too, is they continue to learn. They continue to change their techniques and update their techniques and learn more about different things. And I mean, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. It's
Yep.
How do you motivate people to do stuff now that you're not in the military and you can just say big rank trumps little rank? Now you
Right.
actually have to motivate people to do stuff. And granted, in the military we talk a lot about motivation, but let's be honest, in a lot of cases, it's big rank trumps little rank, so go do it. And,
Right.
it's, it is
Yeah.
what it is. There's not a whole
There's
lot
no
of technique to
UCMJ.
it.
Yeah. You don't have any UCMJ powers in the
Yeah.
civilian workplace. You got to actually motivate them because they can just tell you to screw off and go find another job.
Yeah. Making me remind me of my favorite game in uniform was rock, paper, rank. 1, 2, 3. Um, so because we're actually coming up on time, but I want you to kind of expand even more. So explain to folks what this IO psychology pop-up community is that you started.
Well, it's kind of like with the veteran thing. I I graduated, blah, 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 and I didn't know anybody who was in my field because back then you pronounced IO HR. So people would retire, people graduate, and they handed me a piece of paper and wished me luck. And so when I met my first IO in the wild was actually during my transition out of the Navy, and I was like, oh my God, we exist. And so as I started to expand that community, I realized that, kind of like, pre all these resources we have as veterans, I mean, people are just wandering around. There's no real yeah, we got some professional organizations and stuff, but just for the regular person, there wasn't anything. And I was encouraged to do some virtual network events, and that's where it started. The usual thing, Sean, give me your intro. Great, thanks. Good to meet you, Keith. And we started off with that, and it just it got to the point where the same people were coming, and it was like, well, okay, Sean, I don't need to hear it again. I know. And so we just got to the good stuff, the conversations, and we're pushing 3 years now that we meet
Wow.
almost every week, and we've actually just revamped it a little bit. I'm actually doing a little bit more structure because it was just free form for a while, but now, okay, we're going to start out talking about this. Where do we see our field going in the next 5 years? Discuss, and we start bringing people in. And I had some people come in this week. There were two students that in their very first classes of their program, and they said, "Oh yeah, somebody in my university had this listed on a list of resources."
Nice.
What?
Hmm.
And they didn't come across a link on LinkedIn or whatever. Somebody told them, and I was kind of floored. I was like, "Sweet, well, what can we help you with? What questions do you have? You're brand new. The ink hadn't dried on your contract. What's happening?" And we kind of let them lead the conversation at first, and oh my God, I'm going to be back, and that's what we go for. Is
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, I have people that hadn't been there in a year, and they come back, and it's like, oh, I've missed this place, and you know, maybe we'll have the same, maybe there'll be no new people this week. Cool. How'd that job interview go? Has you having that issue with your boss? How's that going? And we talk through those things, and then we get a new person, a new person, 2, 3, 5, whatever. Okay, well, what brings you here? What can we help you with? And it turned in from a random network thing where we're all doing elevator pitches and all that other happy horse hockey that they tell us to do, and became a community where we know about each other, where we talk about each other, where we talk through, hey, I got this problem with a person at work, can anybody give me some feedback? And here's the story. And it's like, oh, have you tried this? Do you have this program? And just like we were talking earlier with the veteran resources, we can go, I'm kind of needing this thing. I know somebody who can help you with that. Let me connect you. And we do, and so it's very similar to what I do with vets, just in general is I don't know that, but I know somebody who does. Let me connect you to them. And we do a lot of that. Um, it's been pretty rewarding. And I'm not gonna lie, doing it every single week gets a little tiring sometimes, but I've built a network where I can say, hey, look, I gotta, I'm talking about my wife's scheduling things. My wife's got something going Thursday. I can't make it. That's okay. I got it. Awesome. And we keep it going. And, we've done it every single week this year. I think the only week we may miss is we probably won't do it Thanksgiving unless somebody just wants to do it because I'm not going to be there.
That's my birthday.
Nice. Well, it's that time again, Keith.
It is, man. This time flew by. And yeah, I admittedly didn't do any research prior to this call on what the IO psychology thing was. I genuinely wanted to kind of learn. And I'm going to go research it even more now because it really is. I think it's what I'm doing. Like I tell people I'm in the HR field, but now I'm like, holy cow, I feel like I'm more I don't have the degree, but I feel like I'm more in the IO psychology side of the house than I am in the true, because all my HR coworkers, yeah, they're just doing the admin stuff, right? Like they're not doing that human being aspect. So I think this is, even for our listeners, if you're transitioning and getting out and you're trying to find yourself, especially again, and I said E6 to E8 for a reason, right? I purposely left out the or the E9s and all the O's. If you're not sure what you want to be when you grow up, I talked to a lot of veterans in that group, E6 to E8, that this is exactly what they want to do when they grow up more often than not, because it's what they were doing as E6s to E8s, hands-on, and it's the best part of the job. So.
And the beautiful thing too is that there are resources that you don't necessarily have to go get another degree if you don't want to. There are books, there's podcasts. I'm part of a podcast every week called Work Cookie that we talk about this stuff. We talk about various things happen, and a lot of times they ask me, so what was that like in the military? And we open that up. You ever want to come visit? Join in. It's, it's a free for all. And, there are resources out there without, God, I don't want to go back to school. Well, you don't have to.
Yeah. I may just relabel myself as an IO psychologist. That just sounds cooler than workforce planner or whatever it is they call me. But yeah. All right. We are at time, Lee. Thank you so much for coming on. But before we go, I do have one more question. How do people get in touch with you? How do they reach out to you to either learn more about this, the IO psychology, or just they want transition tips from you or whatever it might be?
Well, the easiest thing is hit me up on LinkedIn. It's about the only real social media I do. I'm easy to find. I think I'm the only Lee Crowson on LinkedIn. We've got a YouTube channel for webinars we do, there's plenty of stuff. Just shoot me a note. Tell me you heard about it on VET S.O.S. and give those guys a plug. And happy to connect and, keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Yeah. Lee's one of the real deals out there in the mentorship community. Lee, again, it's great having you on the show. Great seeing you again, talking to you again, and love what you're doing. Keep fighting the good fight. And on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S. family, we want to thank everyone for spending their time with us this evening, because it's technically Tuesday night, I think, something, right? It's always great having you along for the ride. Don't forget to check out all of our other episodes and keep coming back for more stories, insight, and support from the VET S.O.S. crew. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow, share the show, and tell a friend or two. Toss your battle buddies, fire team, shipmates, and wingmen that flotation device that they need in transition so no one drowns in that sea of transition. And as always, remember to grab the VET S.O.S. Lifeline.